If you want to follow along, I recommend this dbfiddle website. It's a free website and you don't even need to create an account. When you open the website, just click on SQL Server, that's the flavour of SQL that we're using for these videos, and make sure you choose AdventureWorks as the database. That will give you access to all of the same sample data that I'm using in these videos.
Today we're going to talk about unions in SQL. Now, unions are really similar to joins in that it's combining information from different tables. We saw that with the joins, it was all about getting columns from other tables onto a base table. But the union is kind of the other way around. It's adding rows to a new table from another table. Now, we don't really have any good examples for unions in the AdventureWorks data, so I'm going to do a bit of a silly example, but hopefully it illustrates what we can do with unions and why you would want to use them. So let's jump in. Let's just start with our favorite department table. So let's open this in SQL, do a select star from, remember it's in the human resources file, so we've got to write human resources first and then department. I've written my code, let me run it to open this file. Here we go, we've got the departments. Let's remind ourselves how something like the where clause works. We write where after from, we'll do where. Let's say we want where the group name is that top one, research and development. So let's just copy and paste that in. Update my code, let me rerun it. Here we go. We've got 3 that are research and development. Let's say we had a separate query, a separate table, whatever you want to think of, separate output that was now for sales and marketing. So we could filter this one for sales and marketing. So we've got like two separate outputs that look really similar. They've got the same columns, they've just got slightly different rows. Again, I'll stress this is a bit of a silly example, but we're going to go with it anyway. What if I wanted to combine these two? Of course, we could just update the group name. But let's say we've done some very separate things, or they might even come from separate tables. How might I glue these together so that it's 5 rows in total? That's where we use union. Union kind of sits between 2 queries. So this query has an output, this select has an output, this select has an output. Union's just going to glue them both together. So when I run this, it's going to run one big query. That's why I've got the big green box around the entire thing. Let's run it and see what we get. Now we get all 5 rows all together. We've got the research and development ones first, and the sales marketing one second, just like we do in the union. And just to show that we could do multiple of these, let's whack on another one. Let's also whack on manufacturing. So let's whack manufacturing into here. Just before we run this, let's just open manufacturing just to make sure that we can see it. We sure can. So now when we run all of this, this is the research and development rows, unioned with the sales and marketing rows, unioned with the manufacturing rows. Let's give it a run, see what we get. Get the rows for all 3 of those outputs. Just to really stress, this is a bit of a silly example. We probably wouldn't do this in practice. But you might find yourself in a scenario where you've got 2 separate bits of SQL code that produce really similar outputs, and you want to glue them together. You want to combine their rows together. Union is the thing that you would use for that. There's a few rules and behaviors that we need to just mention regarding union. The first rule is that all of the columns have to be the same data type. Of course, we would typically union data when they've got exactly the same rows, but SQL doesn't know if 2 rows are the same. So the best it can do is check whether the data types are the same. So let's spell out some of these. This is the department ID, we've got the name, we've got the group name, and the modified date. We'll do the same for the bottom one. And we'll just rerun this just to make sure it works. Of course it does. Hide that. When the union runs, it checks that this one is equal to this one. The data types are equal. And then it will check that these data types are equal. And these data types are equal. And these data types are equal. If they're not equal, it can't combine them. SQL it doesn't want to, or it's not allowed to combine data that are different types in the same column. Let's just prove this. So if we were to get rid of group name in the first one and modified name in the second one, well, modified date is a date, group name is text. So what happens when we try and run this? We get an error. It doesn't know how to combine a date with text. So that's rule number one. The data types have got to be the same. Hopefully you won't run into this because you'll make sure that the columns are all the same. But this is one of the rules with unions. Another rule with union, this might feel a bit obvious, is that the column, there has to be the same number of columns. So if I just get rid of the modified date in the second one, this has got 4 columns, this has got 3 columns. If I try and run this, again, it's not going to work. We can't combine 2 outputs that have got a different number of columns. Now, one of the behaviors of union is that it removes duplicates. Let's see what I mean. So if we take research and development again, then and let's see what the output of this one looks like. It's the 3 rows for research and development. Let's now see what these rows look like. Well, this is more research and development. So what if we try to union both of these together? Would we get 6 rows or would we get 3 rows? Well, let's run it and find out. We get the 3 rows. It removes duplicates after it unions the tables together, after it glues the rows together. If you don't want this to happen, you just need to write union all instead. Keep all rows. Don't remove the duplicates. So I've updated my code. Let me rerun it. Now we do indeed keep the duplicates. Like I said, these aren't great examples. There isn't really any great examples in the AdventureWorks data for us to illustrate this union, but this is how it works, and you might find that it's what you want in a certain scenario. So to wrap up, we've seen that union is how we can glue 2 tables together. We can glue the rows of 2 tables together. For example, we can do this one unioned with this one, and we'll change this to sales and marketing. When we run this, it glues their rows together. And since it's gluing rows together, we need to make sure that there's the same number of columns either side of the union, and that those columns have the same data type. If you're trying to make sure that the columns are the same, you'll already tick both those boxes, but they're the 2 requirements that SQL has. And finally, the union will only keep the unique rows. It runs that remove duplicates thing that we've seen in Excel after it's unioned the tables, after it's glued the rows together. And if you don't want that to happen, you just need to write union all instead. But I hope you found this helpful, and we'll catch you in the next one.